In the vast expanse of the Andari Expanse, a planet bathed in the glow of twin suns, the sound of metal clashing and energy pulses filled the air. The planet's native inhabitants, a proud warrior species with skin like burnished bronze and eyes that shimmered like molten silver, were preparing for a ceremonial display of strength. Humans were rare visitors, even rarer allies. And Kale had always known his presence here was precarious. Kale adjusted the plasma welder in his hand, inspecting the dented shoulder plate of the alien warrior's armor. She crouched on the rocky outcrop, watching the distant horizon where the expanse's endless dunes seemed to shift with a life of their own. The armor had taken a beating in the last skirmish against a marauder clan, and Kale's hands, though untrained in the way of the warriors, moved with precision. Each bolt, each seam was repaired with care. "You're human," she said finally, her voice carrying across the rocky plateau. There was no accusation, only observation, though her tone was clipped like a blade's edge. "I am," Kale replied, not looking up. "But I know how to fix armor." Her eyes softened just slightly, the faintest recognition passing through their silver gleam. Kale had learned to read subtle cues over the weeks. Every warrior had their pride, but there was a rhythm, a language in the way they carried themselves when they felt respect or curiosity. As he tightened the final clasp, she shifted closer, letting him examine the joints around her forearms. "The human touch is precise," she admitted, almost reluctantly. Kale chuckled softly, though he felt a knot of tension. Being alone with a warrior of her caliber was intimidating. Yet, despite the alienness of her appearance, the subtle ridges along her temples, the way her hair moved as if caught in a current, even without wind, there was a warmth in her presence he hadn't expected. "Done," Kale said at last, stepping back. The armor gleamed under the twin suns, as if it had never been damaged. She stood, the full height and presence of her imposing figure almost overwhelming. "I am Aaron," she said formally. "And you are?" "Kale." "Correct," he replied. There was a moment of silence, the kind that stretched longer than comfort allowed. He sensed a storm in her gaze, not of anger, but of curiosity, something alien and probing. Then, without warning, she stepped closer, placing a hand on his chest over the human uniform he wore. Her touch was firm, deliberate, but it carried an energy that was inexplicable. "You are my mate," she said, her voice low but commanding. The words struck Kale like a lightning bolt. Around them, the plateau was empty, but in the distance, he could hear the subtle stirrings of other warriors, their movements slowing as they sensed the shift in the moment. Kale froze. His mind raced. "Your mate?" "Yes," she said again, without hesitation. Her eyes searched his, seeking acknowledgement, confirmation, some human understanding of a bond that was ancient to her kind. The silence was absolute for a heartbeat. And then, like the release of a dam, the cheers and roars erupted from the ridges and valleys below. Warriors appeared from every direction, their expressions a mix of awe and reverence. The word of the mate bond traveled fast, faster than any communication device. To be chosen by a warrior of her rank was an honor beyond measure, and for a human, it was unprecedented. Kale's mind struggled to process the enormity of the moment. He had come here to repair armor, to assist where he could, and now he was the center of a celebration that would be remembered in the histories of this warrior, people for generations. Erin placed her hand firmly in his, a gesture of both solidarity and declaration. "Do not fear," she said, her tone softer now, almost human in its cadence. "The bond is real, and it will protect us both." Kale swallowed hard. He could feel the weight of expectation pressing down on him, but also a strange sense of belonging he had never known. He stopped. Words felt inadequate. He had lived among humans for decades, but nothing had prepared him for this. A bond that transcended species, tradition, and even understanding. The warriors circled them now, forming a ring. Their eyes glimmered with excitement, anticipation, and the fiery pride of a people who had found a human worthy of their trust. Cale noticed the subtle bows and nods, gestures of recognition and acceptance. It was a language of respect, one he had learned quickly in the short weeks he had been here. Erin's gaze did not waver. She raised her free hand, and the assembled warriors fell silent. We celebrate not just the bond, but the courage it took for a human to walk among us, to honor our ways, to protect our people. This is a day that will be remembered. Cale realized then that the bond was not just ceremonial. It carried responsibility, protection, honor, and somehow, in that instant, he knew he was ready to embrace it. The celebrations that followed were unlike anything Cale had ever experienced. Music resonated in harmonics that seemed to touch his very bones. Dances told stories of past victories and heroic deeds, and warriors spoke to him in a language that was part poetry, part command. Yet through it all, Eren remained close, guiding, supporting, and occasionally shooting him a glance that carried unspoken meaning. As the twin suns began to set, painting the dunes in hues of molten gold and crimson, Cale found himself standing at the center of a council. Eren beside him, the human and warrior alliance was being formally recognized. Discussions about strategy, protection, and mutual aid were underway, but all Cale could focus on was the strange, exhilarating reality that he was now more than just a human observer. He was part of something larger, a bond that bridged worlds. Days passed, and Cale began to learn the subtleties of the mate bond. It was not just ceremonial. It was a partnership. His instincts, his understanding, and even his courage were enhanced by the connection. He could feel Eren's awareness of the battlefield, her pulse syncing with his, her movements guiding him in ways that seemed almost intuitive. The warriors looked on with admiration. The human thrives, they would say in hushed tones, not out of surprise, but out of genuine respect. Cale's small acts of bravery, his ingenuity in repairing and reinforcing weapons and armor, his willingness to stand shoulder to shoulder with them in drills and skirmishes, all of it began to build a legend. Eren, once a distant, formidable figure, became a constant presence. She shared stories of her people, their victories, their losses, and the weight of command. Cale listened, asked questions, and gradually found his voice not only as a mate, but as a contributor to a culture so different, yet deeply honorable. One evening, under the light of the twin moons, Cale and Eren stood atop the highest plateau overlooking the expanse. The celebrations had quieted, replaced by a serene stillness. "Do you understand now?" Eren asked. Her eyes, usually so piercing, held a softness reserved only for him. "I think so," Cale said. "It's more than just a bond. It's a responsibility, a connection, and a chance to be part of something greater than myself." Eren's lips curved into the faintest smile. "Exactly. Together, we can face what comes. Together, we can protect our people and honor our bond." Cale nodded. The weight of her words sank in, and he realized that being chosen was not an accident. It was a recognition of his values, his courage, and his heart. And as the twin moons bathed them in silver light, he felt a certainty he had never known. The exodus of new challenges was always looming hostile factions, marauder raids, the unpredictable forces of the expanse. But Cale knew that with Eren, with the mate bond, he was no longer just a human in a foreign land. He was a protector, a partner, and a figure of hope for an entire warrior civilization. The next morning, the celebrations resumed with renewed vigor. Songs, dances, and stories praised the courage of the human and his bond with Eren. Cale, once unsure and hesitant, now stood tall, his hands steady and heart confident. He moved among the warriors, sharing laughs, exchanging strategies, and receiving nods of respect. The bond had made him more than himself. Weeks turned into months, and the mate bond strengthened in ways even Kale could not fully articulate. The warriors, initially wary of the human's presence, now looked to him as an example. His decisions, tempered by humanity and guided by the mate bond, brought innovative solutions to age-old challenges. One day, during a training exercise, a sudden sandstorm forced the group into a defensive formation. Kale felt Erin's pulse spike, her movements anticipating threats before they manifested. Acting instinctively, he coordinated the formation, issuing commands that blended human ingenuity with the strategies he had observed from the warriors. The storm passed with minimal damage, and when the dust settled, the warriors erupted in cheers, praising not only Erin's skill, but Kale's as well. That night, around the campfire, Erin leaned close. "You have done more than I ever imagined," she said. "You are not just my mate, you are a protector, a warrior in your own right." Kale smiled, feeling the warmth of the flames mirrored in the glow of her eyes. "And you have taught me what it means to truly belong," he said, as the stars shone over the dunes. Human and warrior alike celebrated not just a bond between two beings, but the unity of species, the triumph of courage, and the promise of a future forged together. Kale knew then that his journey had only just begun, but with Erin by his side, he was ready to face anything. And so, in the heart of the Undari expanse, the story of the human who became a mate, a protector, and a legend was born, a tale that would echo across worlds for generations to see.